The store's automatic doors opened for someone walking backward toward the entrance. I noticed because the chime didn't sound right. It's a small thing, but when you work the overnight shift at a convenience store long enough, the place becomes a body you can feel from the inside. The compressor's low hum behind the drink coolers, the faint electric tick of the heated food case, the fluorescent lights overhead, one of them flickering in a rhythmic pulse that makes the floor tiles look like they're breathing. The chime usually rings once, bright, synthetic, cheerful. This time it stuttered, a clipped, uncertain trill, like it had inhaled and forgotten how to finish. I looked up from the counter. The doors were open. Outside, the parking lot lay flat and silver under the street lamp. Midnight drizzle softened the edges of everything. The asphalt reflected the store's interior in a warped, watery duplicate. Rows of snacks, the red sale signs in the window, me standing behind the counter in my blue uniform vest. No one stood in the doorway. The sensor above the frame is sensitive. Moths set it off. Rain sometimes does. But the doors weren't just twitching. They were fully parted, as if held open for someone taking their time. A draft of cold air slipped in, sliding over the linoleum and touching my ankles. I stepped out from behind the counter. "Hello," I called, because that's what you do. My voice sounded too loud. The aisles swallowed it. I walked toward the entrance. The rubber mat inside the doors was damp, as if someone had stepped on it with wet shoes. There were faint impressions on the surface. I crouched, squinting. They weren't pointing inward. The tread marks were reversed, as if someone had walked backward into the store. I straightened slowly. The parking lot was empty. No cars idled at the pumps. No figures lingered near the ice freezer. Just rain, falling steadily. I told myself it was a trick of the light, the mat's pattern distorting the water. I hit the manual close button. The doors slid together with a smooth, obedient sigh. The store settled back into its low mechanical breathing. I returned to the counter. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then the doors opened again. No chime this time, just the soft mechanical rush. I looked up immediately. Still no one. But this time I saw movement, not outside, but inside the glass. The reflection. The fluorescent lights behind me stretched across the doors, overlaying the dark lot. In the glass, I could see the counter, the shelves, the racks of gum and batteries. And standing just inside the threshold, reflected but not present, was a figure. Faced me. Its body was angled wrong, shoulders squared toward the counter. But its feet were pointed toward the street, as if it had entered walking backward and simply never turned around. I blinked. The reflection showed empty space again. I didn't move for a long time. The store felt narrower somehow, the aisles closer together, the air heavier like before a storm. I forced myself to step toward the doors again, slower this time. The floor tiles seemed subtly misaligned beneath my feet, the black grout lines not quite straight. The overhead light flickered, and in that flicker, the shadows of the shelves leaned a degree too far. The doors remained open, patient. I looked at the mat. The reversed prints were clearer now. Heel first, toe last, each impression leading deeper into the store. I turned. They continued down aisle 3. That aisle holds canned goods and instant noodles. Narrow, claustrophobic. The shelves are tall enough that when you stand in the middle, you lose sight of the counter. I swallowed and walked toward it. The store's ambient sounds changed as I entered the aisle. The hum of the coolers grew muffled. The rain outside seemed distant. Even my breathing felt dampened, absorbed by the stacked metal cans. The footprints ended halfway down, right where the aisle's convex security mirror hangs from the ceiling. I looked up. The mirror reflected the top of my head, the bright strip lights, the neat corridor of products, and someone standing directly behind me. They were facing away from the mirror, facing deeper into the store, but their reflection showed their face. I could see it clearly, pale, unfocused, eyes fixed on me in the glass. The body was turned wrong, spine bent slightly, as if twisted too far in one direction. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it would echo. I did not turn around. Slowly, Carefully, I stepped backward out of the aisle. In the mirror, the figure stepped forward. Not toward me, toward the counter. Still facing away. The spatial logic felt thin, stretched like plastic wrap. When I cleared the aisle entrance and turned into open space, the store was empty. No figure, no movement, but something had changed. The shelves near the counter were angled differently. Subtle but wrong. The rack of magazines leaned slightly toward the door. The gum display was rotated a few degrees. Everything in the store had pivoted, just barely, toward the entrance, toward the street. I felt it then, the internal logic. It wasn't that something had come in. It was that the store had aligned itself to let something leave. I backed toward the counter, keeping my eyes on the doors. They were closed now, but the reflection showed them open. In the glass, I saw rain falling through an empty frame. I saw the parking lot stretching wider than it should, longer than the property line allowed. And I saw myself standing at the threshold, facing outward, walking backward. My reflection's feet slid heel first across the mat. I wasn't moving. The air grew colder, pressing against my lungs. The fluorescent light above the door flickered rapidly, casting frames of motion that didn't belong to me. In each pulse, the reflection advanced a little farther. Heel, step, heel, step. Behind me, the shelves creaked, metal adjusting against bolts. The entire store was rotating, degree by degree, aligning with the direction of my reflected movement. I understood then. Whatever had entered walking backward hadn't been coming in. It had been positioning the exit. And now the store was correcting itself, making sure the path was clear. The counter felt distant, as if it had slid a few feet away. The aisles seemed to converge toward the doorway like rails. In the reflection, I reached the rain-slick pavement. The doors in reality shuddered. They began to open. Cold air rushed in, stronger than before. The smell of wet asphalt filled my nose. I tried to step back, but the floor resisted, not physically, but visually. The tiles beneath me stretched, elongating toward the entrance. The reflection paused. It tilted its head slightly, still facing outward, as if listening. Then it began walking again, backward, into the dark of the lot. My body remained in place, but I felt something loosening inside me. A subtle detachment, like a thread unwinding from my spine. The store completed its rotation with a faint metallic groan. Every shelf now angled toward the doors. The convex mirror above aisle 3 caught the doorway perfectly, centered like an eye. And in that mirror I saw it clearly. I was standing at the entrance, facing the rain, walking backward into the night. The real doors were fully open now. The chime emitted a soft, continuous tone, as if stuck mid-note. I looked down. My shoes were damp. Heel-first impressions marked the mat behind me. I don't remember stepping. Outside, the parking lot seemed longer than before. The street lamp flickered at the far edge, its light thinning into something that didn't look like rain. The store lights hummed behind me, or ahead of me. It's difficult to tell now. The glass reflects differently. From here I can see inside. The shelves are perfectly aligned. The counter sits where it always has. A blue-vested clerk stands beneath the flickering fluorescent, staring toward the doors. Waiting. The automatic doors slide open again. And inside the store, the chime stutters, uncertain, expectant, as someone begins walking backward toward the entrance. A customer asked which aisle the quiet shelves were moved to. He said it casually, like he was asking for batteries. It was close to 2 in the morning. The fluorescent lights overhead had settled into their usual half-flicker, one tube near the back corner struggling to hold a steady glow. The store felt thin at that hour, air-conditioned air too cold against the skin, the hum of the refrigerators louder than it should be, every small sound traveling farther than it did during the day. I was behind the counter, reorganizing cigarette cartons that didn't need reorganizing, when he stepped up. "Sorry," I said. "The quiet shelves," he repeated. His voice was soft but precise, like he was naming something official. "They were moved, right?" I studied him. Mid-30s, maybe. rain-specked jacket, hair damp and flattened. He didn't look unstable or confused. He looked expectant. "We didn't move any shelves," I said. "We've got canned goods in 3, snacks in 4, cleaning supplies in 5. He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No, the quiet ones." The word quiet seemed to dull the air between us. The compressor behind the drink coolers kicked on, and for a moment I lost the subtle background noise I'd grown used to. The tiny creaks, the distant traffic outside. "I think you've got the wrong store," I said. He looked past me then, toward the aisles. "They used to be near the back," he murmured. You could tell by how it felt, like stepping into snow. A thin chill traced my shoulders. "I'm here every night," I said. "There's nothing like that." He nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something for him. "That's what they told you." The bell above the door didn't ring when he left. I only realized he was gone when I looked up and the entrance stood empty, glass reflecting the interior in pale, fluorescent layers. Outside, the parking lot shimmered with leftover rain. For a while, I told myself it was just another late-night interaction. We get strange requests, lottery conspiracies, expired coupons argued like constitutional rights. Still, the phrase stayed with me. Quiet shelves. Around 3, when the store settled into its deepest lull, I noticed something odd. Aisle 6, the overstock aisle we barely used, seemed darker than usual. Not unlit, just darker. The fluorescent tube above it was on, buzzing faintly, but the light didn't spread properly. It felt absorbed, pressed flat against the metal shelving. I stepped out from behind the counter. The soles of my shoes whispered against the linoleum. The hum of the refrigerators thinned as I moved away from them. My reflection followed me in the convex security mirror mounted near the ceiling, slightly delayed, slightly curved. Aisle 6 held paper towels, bulk ramen boxes, plastic-wrapped cases of water. Nothing unusual. But when I entered it, the sound changed. Or rather, it didn't. The soft friction of my clothes. The faint click of my tongue against my teeth. Even my breathing seemed to stop carrying. I took another step. The air felt padded. I snapped my fingers experimentally. Nothing. No sharp crack. No echo against metal or tile. Just the motion of skin meeting skin, swallowed before it could exist. My stomach tightened. I stepped back out of the aisle. The hum of the store rushed in around me, loud and invasive. The refrigerator compressor rattled. Somewhere near the coffee machine, a drip hit plastic with a distinct tap. I stood there, pulse racing. Then I stepped in again. Silence. It wasn't a natural silence. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was as if the shelves themselves were absorbing it. I reached out and touched one. The metal was cold and slightly textured, the industrial grain pressing into my fingertips. But beneath that, there was a subtle give, a softness, almost imperceptible, like pressing against dense foam behind a thin veneer. I withdrew my hand quickly. The lighting flickered overhead. For a split second, the aisle appeared longer than it should have been. The back wall, painted cinder block with a fire extinguisher mounted near the door, seemed farther away. When the light steadied, it looked normal again. I turned toward the entrance. In the convex mirror, my reflection stood in aisle 6. But the aisle in the reflection extended much deeper, rows of shelving continuing into dimness that didn't exist in the physical space. And my reflection wasn't looking at me. It was angled slightly, head tilted toward something deeper down that extended corridor. I stepped out into the main walkway. Sound returned instantly, jarring and loud. The buzzing lights felt aggressive. The air conditioning unit clattered on with a mechanical cough. My heart was hammering. I told myself there was a logical explanation. Acoustic anomaly, bad wiring, my own exhaustion. Still, I grabbed the small rubber mallet we kept under the counter for ice bags and walked back. If the shelves were hollow, if something was loose, I'd hear it. I stepped into aisle 6. The silence enveloped me again. I raised the mallet and struck the metal shelf. The impact felt real, solid vibration traveling up my wrist. But there was no sound, no clang, no resonance. The vibration didn't fade either. It lingered. The metal trembled under my hand, long after the strike, like something behind it was redistributing the force. The overhead light flickered harder this time, dimming almost to nothing. The aisle stretched. It wasn't an illusion. The shelves subtly shifted apart, widening the space between them. The back wall receded, inch by inch. The floor tiles elongated, their grout lines thinning into dark seams. I tried to step back. The entrance to the aisle felt farther away. Panic rose, sharp and dry. I turned around fully and found myself facing more shelving. The store layout had changed. Where there should have been an open walkway leading to the counter, there was only another row. Each shelf identical, each packed with the same products. Labels facing forward with sterile precision. And all of it utterly silent. My breathing didn't register in my ears. My pulse thudded only in sensation, not sound. I spun slowly. The aisles were multiplying. The fluorescent light above buzzed faintly, but even that seemed distant now, like memory rather than present noise. Then I noticed something worse. The products weren't identical after all. The boxes closest to me were subtly wrong. The ramen packaging had no brand name. The water bottles contained nothing visible. The paper towel rolls were blank cylinders without texture. Like placeholders. I reached for one. As my fingers brushed the plastic wrap, the shelf shifted backward a fraction of an inch, as if recoiling. The silence deepened. Felt aware. I remembered the customer's words. You could tell by how it felt. Like stepping into snow. I realized then that this wasn't new. It had been here before. Maybe always. Maybe moved deliberately to the back, where fewer people would wander in at night. Maybe I'd been told not to notice. The silence began to pulse. Not sound, pressure. A rhythmic tightening and release in the air, like breath. The shelves in front of me leaned closer. The metal edges aligned, narrowing the aisle. I stepped backward. They followed. Not quickly, not violently, just enough to suggest intention. In the convex mirror, still hanging impossibly above this endless corridor, I saw myself from behind. And behind my reflection stood rows of shelving that weren't there in front of me. They formed a corridor that closed slowly, sealing the entrance. I understood the internal logic then. The quiet shelves weren't moved. They expanded. They relocated themselves around whatever entered them. And once inside, the store rearranged to make room. The silence wasn't absence. It was containment. I tried to shout. My throat strained, muscles tightening. But no sound came. Not even the shape of it. The shelves leaned closer, edges nearly brushing my shoulders. The fluorescent light flickered out. Darkness settled, not black, but matte. Light without reflection. In that dimness, I felt something else. Not hands, not touch, but attention. A vast, patient awareness that made no noise at all. The pressure increased, like snow piling softly against a door. And then, the hum returned. Sharp, loud, overwhelming. I stumbled forward into open space. I was standing near the counter. Aisle 6 looked normal. Narrow. Stocked. Finite. The overhead light flickered weakly. The entrance door chimed. A customer stepped in. A woman this time, shaking rain from her umbrella. She glanced around, then approached the counter. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Could you tell me where the quiet shelves were moved to?" Her voice sounded slightly muted, as if it had already begun to be absorbed. I opened my mouth to answer, but for a moment, I couldn't remember which aisle led back to the rest of the store. Behind her, the reflections in the glass didn't quite align. The aisles looked deeper than they were. And somewhere near the back, in the dimmest corner under the failing fluorescent light, the shelves seemed to lean inward, waiting. This time, I knew they weren't expanding randomly. They were making space. For her. For me. For anyone who stepped too far into the snow-soft silence. The hum of the store faltered again, and I felt the air begin to thicken, sound thinning at the edges, as the shelves prepared to move.